Hello family! Today I would like to share, explain and also demonstrate all of the key words used in the movement world. Words used to associate body mechanics to movements, for example. Words that can be really helpful and useful for you to know to freely express yourself when it comes to movements or pains. Being able to express yourself in general is a great skill to have in order to avoid storing things inside simply because we don't know how to articulate them. And trust me, I've had to put a lot of work for me to learn how to truly express myself from scratch, but I have seen massive benefits in the long run. I've always been someone that finds hard to articulate or express feelings or emotions, but eventually with the right practice, I have learned how to master this skill, at least with my body. Just like being aware of your thoughts, feelings, or emotions, or learning a new word that allows you to express yourself a lot better in this world, so can body awareness. Expressing ourselves through emotions, thoughts, feelings, or movements is a great way of communicating our feelings, state of minds, weaknesses, strengths, and mood. Knowing what we can do with our joints and muscles is not necessary when it comes to exercising or movements. However, you can see it as an opportunity to get to know yourself on a much deeper level. It can be a great way to communicate to your coach or therapist and make life a lot easier for them to understand you in order for them to give you the right advice and help you get better. You could openly communicate what's going on with your body when you're going through an injury, for example, or you could just simply express yourself a little bit better than if you didn't know these words. When you train with your coach and they're asking you to do a specific movement, you can just do it rather than hesitating or wonder what that movement is and feel lost. When you're having your physiotherapy or massage session, you can simply and openly express what's going on in your body, where you feel the pains, where you feel discomfort. Hence, you will prevent them from guessing what's going on with your body and give you advice based on what they think is wrong, simply because you couldn't express clearly what's going on with yourself. Whereas if you told them exactly what's going on with you, they might give you the right advice, minimizing the margin of guessing errors. Today, I will demonstrate to you a few of the most mentioned movements that oftentimes people find hard to understand, especially during classes. I will demonstrate the exercises with a talked over explanation so you can practice with me whilst I show you. Enjoy it. Flex the spine, as known as round the spine. Extend the spine, as known as arch your spine. Flex the spine, spinal flexion. Extend the spine, spinal extension when it's arched. You can also do this exercise from different positions. Flex the spine, extend the spine. Shoulder elevation, as known as shrug up. Shoulder depression is known as shrug down, or bring your shoulders away from your ears. Shoulder elevation, shoulder depression, shoulder elevation, shoulder depression. You can also practice this exercise from different positions. So, elevate the shoulders, shrug up, depress the shoulders, shrug down. Elevate, depress, elevate, depress. Shoulder protraction is known as push the floor away from you. Shoulder retraction is known as bring the shoulder blades together. shoulder protraction, shoulder retraction, protraction, retraction. You can also practice this exercise from different positions. Bring the arms at the front, shoulder protraction, shoulder retraction, squeeze the shoulder blades together, shoulder protraction, push the arms as far away as you can from you, shoulder flexion, as known as bring your arms up, shoulder extension, as known as bring your arms back, shoulder flexion, we bring the arms up, shoulder extension, we bring your arms behind the body, flexion of the shoulder, extension of the shoulder. You can also practice this from different positions. For example, the child pose requires a shoulder flexion, or an easy bridge raise requires a shoulder extension. Shoulder extension. There is also a little bit of confusion when it comes to bringing the arm away from the body or toward the body, and this movement is known as shoulder abduction, abduction, when we bring the arm away from the body, shoulder adduction, adduction, when we bring the arm toward the body. So the shoulder abducted and the shoulder adducted. Shoulder abduction, shoulder adduction. Also, I wanted to point out that the shoulder joints have nothing to do with the elbows, as well as the hips have nothing to do with the knees. The elbows and the knees have movements of their own. Flexion, as known as bring the leg up. Hip extension, as known as bring the leg back. Hip flexion, hip extension, hip flexion, hip extension, hip abduction, abduction, bringing the leg away from your body, hip adduction, adduction, bring the leg toward the body, just like we did for the shoulders. Hip abduction, hip adduction, hip abduction, hip adduction. Elbow flexion, as known as bend the arm. Elbow extension, as known as lock your elbows. Elbow flexion, elbow extension, elbow flexion, elbow extension. Just like the elbow joints, the knee joint works in pretty much the same way as the elbows. Bend the knee, knee flexion, extend the knee, lock out the knee. Knee flexion, knee extension, knee flexion, knee extension. Now I'm going to show you the difference between posterior and anterior pelvic tilt. Tuck your bum in, posterior pelvic tilt. Push your butt out, as known as anterior pelvic tilt. Posterior pelvic tilt. We join the belly button toward the spine. Anterior pelvic tilt. We're supposed to be feeling tension on your lumbar spine muscles. Posterior pelvic tilt. Anterior pelvic tilt. You can also practice this exercise from different positions, of course. Anterior pelvic tilt, pushing your butt up toward the ceiling. Posterior pelvic tilt. Anterior pelvic tilt. Posterior pelvic tilt. Anterior pelvic tilt. Posterior pelvic tilt. Anterior pelvic tilt. Posterior pelvic tilt. Now we talk about the wrists. Wrists flexion. Wrists extension. Wrist flexion. Wrist extension. Wrists ulnar deviation. You bring your hands to the side, outward. Wrists radial deviation brings the hands inward. Ulnar deviation, radial deviation. Pronated grip, supinated grip. Pronated, supinated. Prone grip, supine grip. Now we talk about the ankles. Plantar flexion is known as on your toes. Dorsiflexion, the opposite. Plantar flexion, point your toes. Dorsiflexion, plantar flexion, dorsiflexion.